Commission. Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Klaus-Smith. I am the chair of the commission, and I am an architect. If you're here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentations, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation, and your project should be presented in the following order: the site plan, the elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. The staff will then present their staff report, and we will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. When coming up to the microphone, please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against a project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments because 3 minutes does go by very quickly. Following the public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed, and the only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the city ordinance, chapter 27 of the city zoning code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, Historic Preservation Development Review or HPDRC comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing here tonight. Please remember that the ARC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owners and or their agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and or approvals. Now, if you haven't already done so, please do silence your cell phones, and I will begin asking I will ask my commissioners to introduce themselves, starting on my left.
Dan Myers, I'm an architect.
Ted Kempton, landscape architect.
John Prokop, I practice architecture.
Stephen Sutton, I am also a registered architect. I also hold the architectural historian chair for this commission.
And tonight on my right, we have City Attorney Dana Crosby Collier, Alexis Guzman, Dennis Fernandez, and Ron Vila. And we have a special guest tonight from the city.
Dave Jenkins, Construction Services Operations Manager.
Thank you, Dave. We'll move on to the next agenda item. So we have the minutes from the October 2nd and 4th meetings or hearing dates. If we could please have a motion to approve those unless there are comments that we need to review.
I move that the Architectural Review Commission public hearing minutes for the meeting of Monday, October 2nd, 2023, and the meeting of Wednesday, October 4th, 2023 be accepted as presented.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All, it was unanimous, if you were looking. Sorry.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to this evening's public hearing, and welcome to our applicants and the public as well who are joining us. I did want to make just a couple brief announcements. First of all, wanted to welcome our newest commissioner, Commissioner Kempton, who has graciously volunteered to serve on our commission in the capacity of landscape architect. And thank you for your time and for your willingness to serve. We certainly appreciate it. Also, we are having a second part of our November cycle on Wednesday, November the 8th. So we do have 2 cases scheduled for that evening. And I also lastly do have the October staff approvals to enter into the record, and we will provide those to the clerk. With that, ready to move on to the disclosure of the ex parte communication and conflicts of interest, and our legal counsel will lead that discussion.
Good evening, Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. Does any member of the commission have a conflict of interest with any item on the agenda this evening? I do not. Thank
None.
you. And has any member engaged in an ex parte communication relating to any item on the agenda this evening?
I have not.
None.
Thank you so much.
Moving on, we do have one continuation to act upon. It is for ARC 23-161 for the property at 501 East Sparkman Avenue. That application was determined to be incomplete and necessitated a continuance to the January the 8th, 2024 public hearing at 5:30 p.m.
I move to to move or continue the ARC 23-161 at 501 East Sparkman Avenue to the Monday, January 8th, 2024 public hearing at 5:30.
I second the motion.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next, we will administer the swearing. Anyone in the audience who's going to be presenting or providing public testimony this evening, if you could stand and raise your right hand, and please staff as well.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be providing today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. And with that, we're ready for our first case. Our first case on this evening's agenda is ARC 22-180, which is a variance request for a front yard fence, a 4-foot front yard fence in the Seminole Heights Historic District on 506 East Mohawk. And I do have a photo essay to orient you. See on the monitor, the subject property identified in the green box. You can see that this is a parcel that was created from the abutting parcel at some point in the past. It is a non-contributing structure that was approved through this commission a few years back, and it is, as I said, located in the Seminole Heights Local Historic District. Here is the district boundaries. You can see the subject properties located on Mohawk Avenue, just to the west of Interstate 275 and to the east of Central Avenue. So again, you see the subject property very tightly woven into that parcel, and its proximity to both I-275, Hillsborough Avenue, and then just to the east of Central Avenue. So the principal facade, you see that the fence has been installed in the front. This was done without a certificate of appropriateness, and the owner is now seeking to remedy that through the request of a variance. Moving on to the alley side, which faces east. This is a view north down that alley that abuts the property. Moving around to the west side, see once again the proximity of the principal structure to the adjacent accessory structure. This is the rear side and the garage. Back onto Mohawk, this would be the property that abuts to the left side of the structure, which is the west side. And as I said, there's an alley on the east side. This is across the street. There's commercial uses across the street of Mohawk that front Hillsborough Avenue. Looking back down to the east, this is the street is a dead end to the exit ramp off of I-75. Then turning around, looking back to the west, this is Central Avenue, and the subject property is here on the right. As I had mentioned, this is before you on a variance request. Certificates of appropriateness for fences are typically managed by the staff. So depending on your motion tonight will depend on how we move forward. The applicant did come in July 10th of 2023 and made their presentation and presented their hardship. At that time, there was discussion followed by a motion. I'll read that motion for you. It was a motion made by Commissioner Prokop and seconded by Commissioner Myers. That was to move the variance request for the case ARC 22-180 for the property located at 506 East Mohawk Avenue for a 4-foot wood front yard fence be denied due to the failure of the petitioner to meet the burden of proof with regards to the 6 hardship criteria as set forth in section 27114D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances. Specifically, that the hardship is that the neighborhood is not good and that it does not meet the criteria for hardship. That motion ended in a tie vote, so under your rules, that case is automatically continued. There's been some subsequent continuations requested by the applicant as they've been unavailable to attend the hearing, but they are here this evening. They do have supplemental information to enter into the record. So if it's the pleasure of the board to allow them to do that, they would have 10 minutes to be able to address the board once again. And I'll be available for any questions, and our legal counsel obviously is here to support you in this process as well. Thank you.
Dennis.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Wareham. I'm the owner of the property. My name is spelled Cecilia Wareham. This is my partner, Michael Toscani. If you want to spell your name.
Miketuscani.
Oop. Which one is it? Sorry. I thought it was gonna be up here already.
He said he was going to do it from the back.
Oh, he was going to do it from the back?
Yeah.
Okay, it's ready. You should be able
Okay,
to.
so we'll be able to
either
see
do
it
it-
from up there?
No, they can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it played. Okay.
All right, let's see. Okay, gotcha.
Okay. All right. So I know we've already been up here quite a few times. Starting from the beginning. First of all, when we built this fence, we had just moved in. We had no idea that there was a restriction. Being a historic district, I just was under the impression that there was no HOA enforcement, so that's why we went ahead and built it. So I just wanted to get that out right away. But basically, that is the fence there. It does meet the city guidelines of being aesthetically appealing and whatnot. This is going to be the survey for the home. We can just go past this.
Keep going.
Okay, did you want to explain this one?
Yeah, so this is the overview of the property here. Let me pull it up here. So you can see the home is circled in blue there. Then what we're showing here is you can see the proximity. You already saw the historic map, and now we're on the very edge of the map. Along with, you can see that we are surrounded on most sides, all 3 sides there, of commercial properties here. We're showing also that the hardship is coming from being in the uniqueness of the property within the historic district. You can see that how unique our property is compared with the other properties to the
Basically, what he's saying
closeness
is
of the, go
the
ahead.
proximity is very close to the highway, the exit off of the highway, right there. And then also being that we have the abandoned building and Papa John's, and then the salon right in front of us along the Starbucks, that is a perfect breeding ground for all of the homeless population that loves to gather around there, and because that's where they stay when they're not begging at the exit right there. That's just a few feet away. But that just shows you kind of their proximity to everything that's around us. So we don't have just home after home, residential homes after another. We're completely secluded by ourselves in this area, which
You can see, so right here in the map too, you'll see how close we are to 275 in Hillsborough right there. That is a major hotspot for people for begging for money, panhandling, whatever. And so a lot of times what they're doing is they're coming over into our area here through the commercial properties, which only operate during business hours. So they'll be able to come in when nobody's there. They'll go in between the 2 areas in there and
which we're going to show on this video.
right
here.
onto private property, and they'll be able to hang out, and then we'll have plenty of video of them doing
does
all
it
sorts
start
of
it?
types of activities.
I don't know how to start it with this remote. This is a video, but I don't know how.
He said it was gonna pull up on here.
Okay, it's playing, but it's not fast forwarding like we really want it to. But
That's all right.
so that is the dead end there where they sleep, they do drugs, they gather, and then right here is the fence around behind Ginger's Salon. That's where they literally they would climb over it, or they broke it down. They would live in there. Prostitution rings have taken place right behind there, which I actually have video of. And then there's another corner. So this basically just shows you the surrounding location. There's no other residential homes. It's the perfect breeding ground for the homeless population. And right here where the camera is shooting is literally where they will sit and shoot up drugs. But we can keep going. This is the original complaint that was filed, which really has absolutely nothing to do with the fence. It's made by an individual that is down the street who doesn't even see our house by any means, but her main complaint was that this is what happens when you put too big of a house on half of a lot. That's her main complaint. It has nothing to do with the fence in itself. And no other neighbor has an issue with the fence. I would just like to point that out as well.
You guys have the supporting documents of of 3 neighbors around there supporting the fence as well.
Right. So I did kind of change up a few things in the presentation before we came here. I apologize. But I just wanted to revise my answers based on what was said in the last meeting. But if you look here, just some minor changes. We are at the edge of the historic district, near the highway, which was pointed out specifically last time. The purpose of the fence, which is stated by the city guidelines, is it is meant to protect the property and is for the assurance of safety and security, enhancement of privacy, and the improvement of visual environment. And then, I can't see the highlight part because it's, we'll keep going. But the fence is in harmony with the general intent of the Tampa comprehensive plan, which is to provide for just and equitable relief when challenged by unusual and unusual conditions. So I just want to point that out. That is the purpose of the plan. So when you do have these unusual circumstances, I think that's what it's intended to do, is help with situations like ours. That's basically all I changed. And this was, my due diligence was brought up previously, so I just wanted to throw in there an email that I had from the fence contractor, specifically when I brought it to his attention that I was being told to take the fence down. As you can see at the bottom of the email, he says basically that he's never had an issue with doing fences in Tampa, and you don't need a permit, that's not required. So I just wanted to show that I actually did do my due diligence, and I did speak with the fence contractor about it before anything. He told me it was perfectly fine. So it's not like I just went and built the fence knowing that I was doing something wrong. That was never my intention.
And there is no permit required for a front
Right.
yard fence, so we can clarify that.
These are just the support letters. I'm sure you've read over them multiple times. So we can just keep on going. These are just some drone shots of what we had showed previously in the drone video of looking directly down into the Ginger Salon fenced area where they stay. And what I have circled there in the left picture is actually a homeless person living there behind the fence. That's just where.
That's directly across from the house there.
Mm-hmm. This is what we see every day.
This is literally taking pictures from the fence.
Yes.
So just right across the street there.
So
You
they
can see
sleep there,
people
they
hanging
keep
out
all
in
their
front there.
trash there.
You can see it's kind of a straight walkway on the picture on the left here. You can see it's a straight walkway right to Hillsborough Ave through there. So they can just come right down there, and they kind of have some privacy back there.
And up on the right-hand corner where you see the African-American man on the mattress, that was actually part of the prostitution ring going on there. So that was nice. This is just another area where they hide, which is right across from where we just showed you. Now I have a video. What do we have to push to make it play?
Is he doing it in the back?
Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is a highly impaired individual. This is what we see on a daily basis.
So you see that's the off-ramp there for 275.
Yep. And that's the abandoned building that he's walking towards. And now we have children at home too, I just want to point out. behavior like this and unpredictable behavior like this is extremely unsafe
Concerning.
and not acceptable.
You can see the exterior hardship that we're showing here, and the fence is not creating it, it's helping protect us from it.
But we have a lot of instances where I'll be outside doing yard work and people will come up to me, you know, begging for money, demanding money. Makes me extremely uncomfortable, but here he comes towards the house. And this is just one of the videos of him. So if we did not have the fence there, he easily could have came right into our yard where we were just trying to enjoy our was that what a video? I don't know. Okay, so this is gonna be a video real quick of, I sped it up for time purposes, of individual shooting up heroin. You can clearly
You can kind of
see
see the fence there, right there,
Yeah.
just across the street from
he's
there.
literally sitting feet from our house shooting up. So once he shoots up, who knows what he's capable of doing after that, but the fence is definitely a barrier between the two of us. And here you go again, is the same thing. Guys shooting up.
And can we get a few minutes just because the PowerPoint wasn't ready when we tried to?
How many more minutes do you think you need?
About 2. I just wanted to really point out a video that's,
Let's get you the time extension before you
Oh,
say
okay.
anything else. I have a motion to extend the time by 2 minutes.
I move that we extend the time by 2 minutes.
A second.
I have a second. All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip this one, but they're doing the exact same thing. This is just a couple videos of a man sleeping out in front of Ginger's Salon. He had to be apprehended by police officers. But I'm gonna skip through this one because the majority have already seen this one anyways. But this is right outside the house. This is me sitting on my patio at night, and as you can see, there's another homeless person smoking crack right in front of my house. You've already seen this one, so I'm gonna keep going to the most recent. This is actually just on my way home, where you can see that all of them are just gathered at the very end of the street, doing drugs, where they always do. The second one is him sleeping. Now this is one some of you may not have seen. I was at home alone recently, and an intruder came into the backyard. I was peeking inside my windows and everything. I decided to take a nap on my back patio. Police had to be called. He was charged with trespassing. Just one of the things we're dealing with. Now this one nobody has seen yet. This just happened a couple weeks ago. I wish we could play the sound, but I did put the verbiage on the video. But as you can see, he's staring at the home. I did speed it up for time, but I had to call the police because he was definitely planning on doing something, and then he went on to look through the windows and everything. He got mad, upset because I did call the police. You can't hear it, but I do have the words coming up here. He's literally screaming at the top of his lungs, and you're gonna see what he's saying here because it can't be played on
He's
TV.
threatening to burn down the house.
Yeah.
He's upset that the cops were called.
He's saying,
He's saying things that we can't repeat here.
right.
Police
Police
can't stop me, but the fence did stop him from
Right, the
coming in.
fence did stop him. I'll kill you, ho. And then here he comes again. This is him because he kept going around the property, just circling it. This is him, and I put, I'll burn this whole bridge down. And trust me, there's much vulgar language than what you're able to hear. And then he goes around the side one more time, and we're almost done. This is the last one. And then, so I know where you stay at. Please can't stop me. I'm gonna burn this down, blah, blah, blah. And he's just screaming at the top of his lungs the whole time. So the fence did what it was intended to do in this situation here. I think this is a perfect example of why we have the fence.
All right, thank you. If there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against, I'm sorry, staff report, sorry. Go ahead, Dennis.
Dennis Fernandez, Architecture and Historic Preservation Manager. As you're aware, we don't provide a staff recommendation on variances, because this is a finding of fact and a demonstration that has been underway by the applicants. The owner did mention there were 3 letters that were put into the record. Those are in your packet. So once you're done asking if there's any public comment and you close for questions, we'll be happy to answer any of those. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dennis. If there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against the variance, seeing no one, we're going to go ahead and move on to commissioners asking questions. And we'll start on my left tonight with Mr. Myers.
I have no questions at this time.
I have no questions.
Mr. Prokop.
I have no questions.
Mr. Sutton.
I have no question at this time.
I have none either. So unless you want to add a few more pieces of information, you do have 5 minutes for rebuttal after a question period.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to say too that we're not saying that the neighborhood is a bad neighborhood, that it's just showing that the property where we are located is unique to our situation and to the exterior hardship. The Seminole Heights neighborhood that we do live in, you could
There's
say is
homes-
one of the most desirable Seminole Heights neighborhood people want to live in.
There's
I
homes
mean,
selling for $1 million.
There's a
in
house
there.
literally a catty corner to our neighbor that just sold for $1 million. Another one right down one street away sold for $750,000. So we're not saying that the neighborhood is bad and we're in this neighborhood, so we're dealing with it. It's just the location of the property.
That's the
it could-
specific hardship, uniqueness of,
Right.
yeah, what we're dealing with. So hopefully you can understand that. Anything else?
Mm,
Anything else we want
No.
to address from those? Okay.
no.
I think that's about it.
All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go on to discussing the case. We'll close the public portion of the hearing now and discuss the case. Commissioners.
I guess the point of contention that I want to elaborate on is when, I gave a motion, or I moved to deny this, the conditions that are being asked for a variance for, to me, are transient conditions. They're temporary conditions. They're not embedded with this lot legally. And that's the condition that this lot's going to be encumbered with forever into the future. It all has to do with adjacent properties, which can change. I even asked during our last hearing whether, if conditions changed on adjacent properties, if it was developed, if somehow the homeless condition changed, whether or not it could be rescinded. Could this be a temporary solution for what, in my opinion, is a temporary condition, a temporary problem? And we can't. This is in perpetuity, it's perpetual variance granted that stays with the property forever, regardless of what happens around it.
Right.
And that was one of the reasons I moved.
And it also
Previous.
establishes a precedence too for Seminole Heights as a historic district, because generally fences, front yard fences are not permitted within that district to begin with. The applicant made a number of points where they've actually had some of these vagrants hop their fence into their backyard, and violate their space and their privacy in that fashion. I do not see how that as an event could even change with a front yard fence, which they could more easily circumvent in many respects. So it brings to mind is that although we have a very transient and perhaps in some degree a scary presentation of what's happening around you in the neighborhood, what is the hardship in actuality? outside of, we parked ourselves here in this neighborhood. But the part I have here is that, yes, you have these instances that happen around you, but is not the actual hardship for tonight's discussion the fact that a fence was constructed without prior review and approvals?
Any other thoughts or discussion?
Yeah, my only take on this is, I think the orientation of the house makes it unique. It's at the edge of the district, and I think that alone, the argument about the precedent, I think, is a valid one, except I think the orientation and the way this house is located with no other front yard residential adjacencies to it that'll be the point that in the future I can come back to and say, no, this is not the same. This is not apples to apples. This was a very unique situation. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but I see the hardship, and I think they make a good case.
I have all the sympathy in the world with the situation. I really do. But I am worried about the precedent.
So,
And now, does every house that's on the edge of a historic district then adjacent to something else, then they get the right to have a front yard fence?
so we've talked about variances before. Variances do not set up precedent for other properties. Each variance is solely each property's variance.
Right.
So it has to be specific to that property. So for that first of it being unique and specific to the property, I would agree. It's a unique and specific condition that they face. They face a certain location, a commercial mix that at this point in time, historically, is more unsafe and insecure than maybe other lots within the district. Does that mean that they then should have some kind of fence security, a physical barrier that allows them to have some psychological safety? You know, we're also mandated to think about, as these properties move in time from their historic date through our modern times and beyond, are we being, as a commission, are we providing the best services to our citizens in these districts, enabling them to live within modern times in historic properties? I myself don't think we set up a precedent. I know that every time one has come before my time on this board, we've been very clear about it being an individual property discussion. So I'm not afraid of the precedent setting. As long as I'm on the board, I don't think that's going to be an issue because I've got a pretty strong voice, I think. But and certainly times will change, and maybe there's a time when we go through and we amend the guidelines. I don't know. That's something that we can discuss at another time. But I think at this time, when you start to think about where they're situated, and honestly, those properties have been depressed for quite some time. This is not a new thing. This has been around for a while, and prior to their purchasing of the property. The only thing that's saving that particular location really is the existence of Starbucks at this point in time. So whether or not this is a perpetual condition, we can't say. But it is something that we have to take into consideration at this point in time for this particular property. What are the specific conditions that require us to consider the variance? And I think there's enough here. Certainly, they purchased the home, and they had the ability to look around and see what they were getting into. However, how does one really know what they're getting into until they start living in a specific location? So I certainly can see a hardship here that I'm willing to support. Mr. Myers?
I initially voted to deny this this variance, but I have since looked at it very carefully. It is extremely difficult for us to deal with the edge conditions. And this is an edge condition that is extremely unfortunate. But psychological safety is something that I really feel that we need to support. So I think you can tell the way I'm leaning at this point.
Any other thoughts that we should consider? A motion that we can entertain at this time?
All right, I'd make a move that the variance request for case ARC 22-180 for the property located at 506 East Mohawk Avenue be granted as depicted on the site plan presented at the public hearing for a 4-foot front yard fence based upon the petitioner meeting the burden of proof with regard to the 6 hardship criteria set forth in section 27-114D of the City of Tampa Code of Ordinances for granting variances as stated, and the evidence provided in this public hearing. Specifically that I think a hardship has been developed because of the orientation of the lot and the irregular edge treatment with the district and the crime that is happening out front of their house.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Nays?
Nay.
Nay.
So recorded. Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Villa. I'm staff for Historic Preservation. Our next agenda item is ARCT, which indicates this is in for the tax ad valorem 23-03. The address is 1208 North Howard Avenue. This is in the West Tampa National District. Since this was coming forward, it is a contributing structure. It is a landmark. It was built in 1900. The current zoning is CI. The request is for the ad valorem tax exemption part 2. The past action on page 3 indicates that this was in front of this board for the ad valorem tax exemption part 1, and it was approved in December of 2021. As this project moves forward, they will have 15 minutes to do their presentation, but before the applicant comes forward, I'm going to walk you through a brief photo essay. On the monitor currently, as the property in question is in the green box. As I stated, it is a local landmark, but before it became a landmark, it was a contributing structure in the National District of West Tampa. It does face Howard Avenue, which is a one-way street heading to the north. It's in between Arch and Nassau. There is an alley that runs to the south of the property that runs east and west. Property in question is here. It did have a canopy in the front. As you see here indicated by the coloring, it was a brick building, and then it had this metal 2-story structure attached to the rear. That is no longer there. This is where they park currently. This is showing the West Tampa National Historic District, as outlined here. It was in the boundaries of the West Tampa District, and as I stated, it is shaded, so it is a contributing structure as well. And this is just a little closer shot of that. This is looking from above, a current aerial. Once again, Howard Avenue, that runs north of one-way traffic. You have Arch to the north, you have Nassau to the south, and the alley that runs east and west. This is looking at the front facade along Howard Avenue. This was built as one building, as you can see by the coping on the top. This is showing the rehabilitation. I'm not going to show too many pictures to steal Peter's thunder as he comes forward. But just to get an idea of the front elevation and then the south elevation, this is the alley that runs between the two parcels. This is looking at the rear elevation and the parking area that comes in off the alley. The materials that you see currently are the materials that were presented and approved as Part 1. This is looking from Howard Avenue down the alley. And looking at this is also a local landmark that came forward. It is under rehabilitation. This was a cigar factory known as the Baldwin. It is going through an adaptive reuse as well as the AIA building. And this is going to be a hotel. But I wanted to share a couple pictures because this is one that this board doesn't see too much in your travels. So all the windows have been taken out. The building's being in the process of being repointed and moving forward as part of the approval that was granted. Staff is out there on a bi-weekly review of the project to make sure it's on course. That concludes the photo presentation, and I'll have the agent address the board at this time.
Hello, my name is Peter Hauerstein. First name is spelled P-E-T-E-R, last name H-A-U-E-R-S-T-E-I-N. I'm an architect at Soul Design Studio and the architect of record for the project. And also at the time of the execution of the project, I was president of AIA Tampa Bay. So got to wear a couple of hats here. Just to remind you folks about the project, for those of you who've seen it and for those of you who haven't seen it, I'll give a quick overview of what happened with the project and what was approved. The shaded area you see here on the site plan is the building in question. It's about 3,000 square feet. When we purchased the property, the metal structure that Ron had talked about was no longer there, and so we converted that into our parking lot. Again, you can see the building here and the parking spaces out to the west of the building. The front part was the oldest part of the building, where we found some original terrazzo, some original stamped tin ceilings. The existing windows that were facing North Howard Avenue were all blocked up, but they were part of the original aesthetic of the street at the time. So our main focus on what we were doing in the building and what was approved happened in the front. There were a few items that happened in the back. The larger space is our gallery. The space to the south of the gallery is our gathering area. We have a collaboration room and some storage. There were some doors in both of those areas that were original to the building that we did reuse in the project. One door here was a 1920s cooler door that we relocated. And there was a door in this location here that got relocated to the collaboration room, undated. We're not sure when it was from, but it was original, so we kept it. In the ceiling plan here, you can see the area of the stamped tin ceiling was limited just to the front of the building. What we had decided to do, and you'll see in the photographs, is that the walls that separated out the new offices did not go all the way up to the ceiling. The walls that were there interrupted the ceiling. There was an old ACT ceiling in there. You could not appreciate the ceiling at all. It was in different states of repair. Some were scrapped and bad painted, others had been painted over. So we took the time to lower the ceiling so that you could appreciate the full ceiling in its original layout once the construction was done. And we did the same for the terrazzo floor. As we all know, the terrazzo floor follows the walls. Usually there's a border on it. This one did have a border, and we kept that border so you could see it. It goes through rooms. We did not interrupt it. These are the elevations that Ron just showed you on the initial presentation, where we opened up each one of the openings. We went through the task of opening up the walls to see where all the original lintels were, to make sure the openings were the correct height and the original size, and replace it with plate glass windows, not knowing what the windows looked like at the time. We didn't want to impose any imagination onto what they may have been, so we leave it up to the imagination of each individual passing by. The south facade, as you can see here, has a lot of lines on it. Most of those lines were abandoned, so we were able to clean those up and pull them away. The same for the south, the west-facing facade. There was one window here that was boarded up. We re-bricked that up with an inset so we could see where that window was and where the original doors were that were, this was one of the doors that was replaced. This was just an old hollow metal door and boarded up, so we replaced those with storefront to match the front facade. Some building sections, some of the walls and doors and windows. The important thing to remember about the doors and windows, there was one door that was found to be existing, all the doors on the inside match as closely as possible with today's standards, that original plate glass door, as well as the framing that goes around the door. So all the casings match historically throughout the space too, even those doors that don't have plate glass. And again, here's the palette of colors that was originally approved for the drawings. We'll just bring you through some photos so you can see the before and after. You could see before how all the windows were bricked up, and there was a little bit of space that went in here through these grills, but we knew that wasn't really appreciating what was happening on the facade at the time. So we took all those out, so minus the scooter. This is the way it looks like today, with some period appropriate lighting that happens on the side. And as Ron mentioned, it is now an historic landmark, and we have our landmark plaque out to celebrate that as well. Some of the details that were saved and preserved. The original building had some dark gray denteling on it. We decided with one of the approved colors to take that and use just a lighter gray so we could appreciate the detailing on what was happening on the cornice and the denteling throughout the building. We also used that same gray on the existing attic vents that happened across the entire facade. And we painted the building white. As we explained in the original application, we did try to see if we could take the paint that was on the building off. When we did, it was destroying the blonde and the white brick, so the white paint was approved. So you can see the nice brick detail work that's happening underneath the windows as you go down the street. Also in this photo here. The south facade got cleaned up over time. There was a lot more on the south facade that you can see here. You can see a lot of the damage that was done. Most of these devices were taken off. It's cleaned up, it's pretty, it's white. We have the branding on there with the period appropriate lighting that again was approved at the beginning of the project. And the back car are the same with the approved brick. The storefront that matches what's happening on the front and the alleyway side, and again, period appropriate lighting. Here's an example of what the terrazzo floor used to look like, and what in my opinion now is probably one of the best looking terrazzo floors in the city of Tampa. It was cleaned up over, I can't remember the exact number, but well over 1,000 divots were cleaned up in the restoration process for this. You can also get a glimpse of the new doors that are mimicking what were the period appropriate doors, and that the casings around the doors and at the base are replicating what was there from the original building. Part of the front of the original building, not everything, had a clay tile base. It was a brown, as you can see, but we painted that clay tile base. We kept it to match the rest of the base work that was happening there, and we saved all of what was the clay tile base in the original building. Here again is another detail of how we replicated what was happening with the historic casings and base work in the building. And you can see here's the view of what the ceiling looked like if you took the ceiling tiles off. You can see the paint is in disarray. It's in different types of colors. There was one room where it was painted brown, so we went with the white paint, again with some period appropriate lighting at the entryway. You can see all the low walls here, so no matter what the configuration of the space is now downstairs, you can see the original location, the original cornices all around the exact spot where the tin ceiling existed when it was installed. Here's a view down the hallway so that you can see how the walls are lower. They're 9 foot, but ceilings are 12 to 13 feet high. This was the existing door that we took and replaced, which now serves as the door to the executive director's office. Example of one of the new doors replicating the historic door. This is a new ADA women's restroom. You'll notice here that there are actually tiles here. We had looked at replicating the terrazzo work that was here. We could not get it to work out. We had this approved by staff during the process. You do notice this is taken before the grouting was done, but the grouting is done now. And in the gallery itself, there was an existing post and beam structure. that we saved. It stayed in the building, and I think I have one other picture that I could show you, but we wanted to celebrate what was happening. This goes from starting at North Howard Avenue and goes towards the back of the building. You can see the original beam here and how it frames the edge of our gallery in this particular image. And you can see the end of the beam here, the wall that we placed for the collaboration room, we placed at the location of the beam, so we wouldn't hide the beam when it passed through that. So we actually celebrate the beam. You can see it both from the collaboration room and from the gallery side. This is one of the doors that was existing that we relocated. And this is the 1920s cooler door that was relocated with the existing hardware down to the poles. And finally, one last view of the gallery space, and if I can say, our opening exhibit celebrating the history of West Tampa. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. The request this evening is for an approval for the ad valorem tax exemption Part 2. Staff's finding that this application is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. This is a prime example of an adaptive reuse. Originally, it was a store and an office. They brought it back to an office while trying to be sensitive to the interior and exterior fabric that was existing. A lot of times we find these buildings in disarray and a lot of the fabric is removed. In this particular situation, a lot of the fabric was removed, but what was left behind was cherished and brought back, and then that was used as a cue to move forward with the new materials that were brought into the site. So staff had a couple of conditions attached to this request moving forward to discuss the placement of the mechanicals on the roof, so it doesn't take away from the charm and the character of the building, so if you could touch upon that. And then just touch upon the alley and how the alley is gonna move forward. I did show in my photo presentation the proximity to the AIA building, the alley, and then the structure that's being rehabbed to the south. So that was part of the presentation, and then Peter could elaborate on that, and that
Yeah.
concludes my portion.
We'll let you, but we have to follow procedure. So staff has presented their report, and then we're gonna ask for public comment. Seeing no one here, I don't think we'll have any public comment, but then we ask you questions, and you'll have that time.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this ad valorem request at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to questions, and if you could please, sir, address the question about the mechanical equipment, where that's located and how it might be screened if it's necessary.
Mechanical equipment is actually placed for structural reasons, and also it just happens to be screened because of that. There was an existing wall here down the middle of the building, and being that it's a wood framed roof, we were able to place the mechanical unit at about this location right here. And as you can see from the photos, from the street photo, you cannot see the mechanical unit from the front.
Okay. And then there was
And then
another item about the alley surface.
And you can't see it from the back either. Just wanted to show you the back.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that's great. In terms of the alley, I can't recall what we said about it in the ad valorem Part 1 component, but is there some plan to address the alley at this time?
Yeah, it's our understanding from seeing the plans for the cigar factory next door that is being converted into the hotel, the scope of the work on the alleyway is in the scope of work on their project. That being said, we are also working hand in hand with the architects from that project. We have tried to help them find City Brick as part of that thing. I don't know what the final decision was on behalf of that architect, but we're also working with them also on that because we want to make sure that grading happens properly too, because we have our parking lot in there. It's lined up with the alleyway now, but that alleyway is also going to serve their back of house. So you're going to see, if you look at their plans, you'll see that their garbage collection comes from down the alley. So that is part of their scope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll let my fellow commissioners have their turn at questioning, so we'll start with Commissioner Sutton.
I have no question at this time.
Mr. Prokop.
I just had one quick question. Peter, you mentioned discussing the front paint color or the exterior paint color that you'd found two colors of exterior brick,
Yes,
okay, which indicates that the building probably wasn't painted originally, or it would have just been one color of brick. The two colors of brick was a design intent. Was there any consideration given to tinting the two colors of brick with a paint color to basically express what the two color brick or the original brick coloration was?
there was not that thought process, and the reason is, as you can see from the existing photos, it was painted white. So we were going with the white that was on the existing building, the gray palette that was on the existing building, but then moving it to the appropriate parts of the building, those two paint colors. There was no opportunity to take the paint off the building. As we tried in several locations, when we peeled it off, the brick wholeheartedly came with it. So that would not have been a good thing for the facade of the building.
What methods did you use to try to take the paint off?
With my finger, just fell right off.
Okay,
Yeah, it was not on very well.
but no color, no like a chemical attempt or anything else like that?
We looked at doing that. We had some experts come out and take a look to see what they could do, and they recommended against it.
Okay. All right, I have no other questions.
Right. Commissioner Kempton,
No questions.
Commissioner Myers.
No questions.
Okay, I have no other questions myself, so you have 5 minutes rebuttal. You can add anything you want to the record.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome, thank you. We'll go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and discuss the case. Any items we should discuss?
I just want to state, I mean, we go through this with all kinds of historic structures. Is it painted? Was it painted originally? Should it be painted? Can we remove the paint if it wasn't originally painted? You know, it's an ongoing historic preservation issue.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to ask the questions and see how, if there was any opportunity or to get down to what the original paint color was when it was painted, because, that could even be considered historic if it was painted.
Absolutely.
Soon after being built. But, no, otherwise, I think it's, it had better be well executed, given who the client is. But I think it was very well done.
I do want to commend the AIA for taking this on, having been a member for a long time, and seeing the various locations where the offices have been. It was fascinating that they landed here in a neighborhood that sorely needed some anchoring. So, wonderful, Dawn. You've been our longest serving. So thank you, and to everyone who worked on it. Peter, really, it's turned out very well. Very great. Thank you. Any other comments or discussion points we need to? A motion to entertain then? There is an ad valorem.
Yes.
One second.
Yep. I move to approve the ad valorem tax exemption application Part 2 for the plans presented at this public hearing in case number ARC, I didn't get it, okay, ARC T23-03 at 1208 North Howard Avenue. Because based upon, for the rehabilitation of this property, because based upon the facts in the record, the proposed project is definitely consistent with the Secretary of Interior's standards for rehabilitation and guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings.
I have a second.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good job. Good job.
You're hired.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Our last agenda item is ARC 23-07. This is for the address of 911 South Oregon Avenue. This is in the Hyde Park Historic District. The subject site and building dates back to 1910. It is a contributing structure with the zoning of RS 60. The request is for a certificate of appropriateness for new construction in addition to the primary structure with site improvements. If you look on the previous action on page 3, there was some work being done in 2018. Since then, that has come into compliance. The request that you're looking at this evening is for ARC 23-07. There has been a lot of work to the site. You'll see through the photos. The agent and the owner are here to address the board. After they conclude with their presentation, staff will be here, preservation staff will be here to provide you with a staff report and answer any questions. And then we do have Dave Jennings with the City of Tampa as well. He's with the Building Department to answer questions as this progresses through this evening. Just to touch upon a brief photo presentation at this time that's in front of you, we start with the Sanborn map. Property in question is in the green box. This is an interior lot. It does face Oregon. As I stated, it's a 911 Oregon. It's in between Morrison and Watrous, and there is an alley that runs north to south behind the property. You have the primary structure, and in 1929, there were 2 accessory structures. Currently, you have 1 accessory structure that is non-contributing, and that will be shown through the photo presentation. This is our vicinity map, just so you get an idea of where it sits within the overall boundaries of Hyde Park. This is a current aerial. Once again, showing the proximity, you have Bay Shore to the south, it does face Oregon, as I stated. You have Morrison to the north, you have Dakota to the west, and you have Watrous to the south. This is looking at the subject site. This is the front elevation, and this is the south elevation. You see the foundation enclosure here. You see the lap siding, which is wood. You see the casings of the windows. The majority of the windows are 1/1 wood windows. Then in certain areas you have some detailed windows. You see the minimal overhangs. You see some of the gingerbread on the gable ends. This is looking down the yard on the south side. Once again, this is the front of the house. This is the south elevation. Here's what we're trying to show. It's kind of tight. Back at the period structure, looking from the front off of Oregon. This is looking down the vehicular access. This is the front portion. This is not coming into play this evening. What we're looking at is the back volume, which you see here. We took a couple of additional photos down the drive aisle. You have an awning here and some other amenities that I'm sure will be discussed this evening. And then towards the rear of the property, you have some scale and massing that was brought into the project. This is just looking at the second story volume. This is part of the original house. This is part of the original house, and you see how it dies into the new construction in the back. Just a little closer shot of what we can. It's a very generous site, but with all the vegetation, it's very hard to get some photos. So if these are needed as the presentation goes on, we can bring these back up. Some street shots. This is looking towards Bay Shore. And you see the canopy of the trees looking to the north. Surrounding properties, this is abutting to the north. This is directly across the street. And this is abutting to the south. Get a context of the neighborhood. Going back to the structure and site, this is looking from the alley. This is the 1-story non-contributing accessory structure. And then you see the new construction in the background. Just a little closer shot of that. That's just from inside. My back is to the fence. This is the non-contributing accessory structure. See the pool area. This is the first floor. I believe the first floor facade was there. There is no modification there. As you go up, well, let's stay downstairs for a minute. This is the first floor rear elevation. Once again, staying there. You see some columns that were brought in. You see some heavy timbers here. You see some columns and piers for the structural stability. Once again, you see the proximity of the accessory structure to the addition back here. And to conclude, just some of the members holding up the load, some of the members here, the glue laying beams and the structures that are in place. As I stated, these will be here if you need them for assistance moving forward. But at this time, I'd like to introduce the owner and his agent. So, Mr. Hoffman, you could come forward.
the microphone. I'm the owner, Jamie Hoffman, JAMIE,
My name is Tom Rolando. Last name is Rolando. I'm acting as an agent for the property owner. And we just like to introduce the different drawing that we brought to show you the scope of the work. Let me see how I get to. Where is it? How do you get to?
Before we get started, have the appropriate papers been filed
Do
for
you know
the
how to
agent?
get this to the?
Because it's not the same
Okay,
agent
this is-
that's on
this
the
is
front page.
There's two agents,
Okay.
Jason Russo and Tom Rolando.
Yeah. Okay.
We have Jason Russo on the. Oh, okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, this drawing basically shows the four phases of the site plan, starting with the existing conditions of the site, and then we show the site plan transition, and the site plan transition number 2, and the final site plan. You see this, the original site plan shows the house, the border of the house. It shows some exterior pavers and the driveway in the left of the house. The transition 2 shows the addition of the phase 1, which is the extension of the master bedroom in the right side of the house. And the transition of the 2 is shows the phase 2 of the extension or the addition to the house in the rear. As you can see, these additions are basically very minimal encroaching to the existing house with the idea of not altering any of the existing conditions of the house. The side, the existing side in the back has a stone pavers, and the stone pavers will be removed in order to maximize the pervious area of the site with the proper requirement for the percentage of allowable maximum. To show you the transition phase of the elevations are in the top is the existing conditions of the house before the demolition started, and you could see horizontally the side elevations of the existing house, the massing, a little rendering, and the photo of the existing house. And the middle we show the existing house and the demolition part of the house that it was required in order to extend the master bedroom, extending the flat roof toward, as you can see in the rendering in the right side, how the room was, the master bedroom was removed and then extending. At the bottom, we could see the final elevation of the phase 1, which is the extension of the master bedroom, and also we show elevation in the side view on either side of the house, and how in the rendering, the final elevation, you could see the extension with the 2 columns added, and the photo in the right side. These are basically large-scale elevation, showing the master bedroom on the right side, and the elevation and the side of the thing. Addition over here, you can see there is a minimum encroachment and extended the same finishes of the house, the same as the size of the windows and the configuration. And this is the front elevation of the house and the side elevation. This is the elevations of this phase 2, which is the addition of the basically 3-story level house, showing the elevation over here with the configuration of the new roofing and the new windows, as well as the side elevation and the rendering of the house and the photos. The middle portion over here, we could see all the elements of the roof that was removed or required to be removed in order to maintain the new shape of the roof required for this addition. The bottom one shows all the 3 phases of the house, showing the phase 2 extension of the house with enclosed porch, showing screens with wood frames, and we extended the tapered columns and the brick base to match the existing columns in front of the house. As you can see over here, this is the existing house and the side view of the addition, showing the window on the side and the roof extending sort of like a dormer. This is looking from the other direction. It's south elevation, and basically you can see over here on the right side the configuration and the profile, the whole massing of the building, and the photo when it was in the construction. This is sort of a little bit more slight detail of the same elevation, showing the screen porch, and the screen porch will be with the wood frame. As you can see over here, showing a section through the whole house, showing all the components and the floor sections and the materials. The house will be using the same wood siding with the new storm windows and the impact-resistant windows at the new locations. And here is the detail of the post showing the screen with the wood frame at each of the corners along this bottom of the addition. So I guess this is all the information I have.
There's other files too.
There's another file. Let's see.
Whatever you want to bring up.
Oh, here is the examples of the NOA of the proposed window, which are, the window that will be used for, and then the metal cladding, the aluminum cladding window that we are suggesting to put in there. Do you remember this?
Those are the existing shingles that the whole house has that we were proposing to use for the new addition.
This is the way how the existing roofing shows, and portion of the flat roofing where the master bedroom was extended. Those are the shingles, yeah.
And that's the existing siding. It's novelty pine. It's all over the house. That would be used for the new addition.
So we're gonna match the existing siding to the new house. You can see over here. This is the elevation of the side of the house, showing the window configuration. And the detail of the column and the base. Actually, the column extends all the way down the slat. The brick is just an enclosure. There are basically no piers over here. The footings are below the concrete slab. So they just rest on top of the slab with the footing below it.
And the brick are the same, is the same brick that's in the front original stairs.
Here is the elevation, the side elevation of the house. This is the elevation of the existing fence. And that's the elevation of the parking garage cargo. No?
No, that's on the other side.
That's on the other side, okay. All right,
And you can, I don't know if there's any other more files, but.
let's see. Let me show that. Well, that's all the fiber, bro.
So this whole project began when my bedroom roof started collapsing because of leaks that had been occurring for years. And I just decided to just, without permission, which I apologize for, to start building. And it just continued. So I just want to apologize to the board for that, formally. And I'm trying to rectify it now. So we've spent a year and a half trying to do everything we can appropriately. I'm not sure, is there anything else to
No,
present?
I think that's all the drawing that we have right now, yeah.
Okay.
And that concludes your presentation at this time?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go on to the staff report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ron Velam, staff with Historic Preservation. On the staff report on page 4, the staff's finding this project is consistent as presented with the Hyde Park design guidelines. If you go to the last couple bullet items that are on page 4, for them to provide an overview of the existing building envelope and the additions and alterations that have occurred without the ARC approval. I think they did, or they have the information here to spur that discussion and continue that discussion. This is really an exercise of scale and massing to begin with. The materials and the fine details I think you could get into, but I think the overall discussion is going to start with that scale and massing as we move forward. Some other additional items on the staff report, wanted him to show that he does have the parking that will meet City of Tampa code and preservation standards down that vehicular access. He had some obstructions there that they appear to be removed, and on his site plan he shows that he could put the 2 cars on site. Some other site items are the fencing that he showed in the condition that are there now. I don't know if there's going to be any additional fencing brought in as part of this. He does have a pool in the back, so the fencing is required to meet City of Tampa code as well for safety standards for the pool. Additional site items are any new hardscape that's brought in. He did show that he's going to remove some of the impervious materials as far as the decking material, but he is incorporating some turf, I believe it is stated on the plans.
Yeah.
So that includes or is open for additional questions and concerns. We had some concerns. There were some exterior stairs for vertical accessibility that were on the plans. Since our last discussion, they have been removed. He had some mini split systems that were attached to the facade, the north facade of the building, that have been removed and been placed on grade that are more appropriate of what we see in different requests coming forward. The foundation that goes around the structure, I wanted to show that through my photo presentation that there was some lattice there currently now. I think everything is open to interpretation. If the lattice, or if this project is to move forward, that the lattice be changed to something that's more period appropriate. And as it wraps around the building, he could discuss that on his drawings as well. There is a lower portion on the rear elevation that shows a screen enclosure. We have very little information of how that's going to come forward with the structural elements, with the screening, with the members in between. So if he has those drawings today, that might be something that is discussed as well. Looking through my list here. The wall section, he has a complete wall section. It is very detailed, but as you go from the ridge to the foundation, we could go through each of those items. He did show the windows, and and some of the exterior materials. But if we get to that point, we go through a systematic manner to call out all of the exterior materials. Once again, we do have Dave Jennings. He is a manager with the construction service operations with the city of Tampa, and I'll be here to answer any questions as well.
Thank you, Ron. All right. Seeing no one in the audience, I'm going to state for a matter of record that there is no one here for public comment. So we'll move on to commissioners asking questions, starting with Mr. Prokop, if you have any.
As part of your presentation, you mentioned that you were removing paved areas throughout the site to make sure you hit pervious area allowances. Do you have those numbers? Do you have the pervious, impervious numbers?
The total impervious area is about between 46 to 47%, which is below the maximum allowed of 50%.
But do you have the numbers?
I didn't have the site plan showing the numbers because that was a drawing that was done separate. Let me see. No, this site plan doesn't have any data. I only know that the impervious total was about between 46 to 47% of the total site.
Okay, I mean, we'd like to see, you know, here's the square footage of the site, here's the square foot of pervious, here's the square foot impervious. I mean, we'd like to have the real numbers.
Right.
In part of your presentation, you said something about new storm windows. Were you just referring to
Well, we're referring
hurricane
to,
resistant windows?
Yeah, impact resistant window, yeah.
The impact windows, okay.
Yeah.
And do they include any of the existing windows? Or is it just new windows
No,
on an
they all
addition?
just the new windows in the addition.
Okay, so the existing windows in the original house are to
They all-
remain?
They all stay to remain, yes.
Okay. One of the photographs showed, I just jotted some things down. One of the photographs shows a flat roof over the master bedroom. It looks like it's about 1 in 12 slope.
Yeah, the existing master bedroom had a flat roof. So when we decided to extend the master bedroom with the flat roof was extended out with the same slope proportion.
Can you point that out on these elevations?
Yes,
Well, you just had the elevations there.
right here.
So upper right is existing,
The
Yeah.
existing.
Yeah,
and then you see a different angle, but that's the same roof up top. It's just extended.
I can't tell what you're referring to.
well, this, let me
Can you
put-
zoom in
Yeah.
to any of these?
You can see over here in this is the existing flat roof of the house existing, okay? And then here is the what before. You can see the master bedroom over here and the portion of the flat roof. So the bedroom was extended out over this area. Here is the picture of the existing.
Can you zoom in into the upper right-hand corner of that photograph, please? You can just hit the plus.
Yeah,
To the left of that, there's a plus.
yeah,
It's plus.
okay.
Plus, that's mine. Yep.
And now pan over so we could see that photo better. I think you can just pick on the photograph and drag it to the left.
Yes,
The photograph is on another page somewhere, not on the page you're on.
Yeah.
You're on the right.
You're in that file.
So if you want to zoom out, back out to page level, to zoom page, and just find the correct page again, because you're on, it went to a different page,
We
unfortunately.
can scroll down. Take that thing and go all the way down to a different slide.
Excuse me, but I'm not sorry.
It's okay, we understand. Sometimes technology is not our friend. There you
There's the
go.
photograph.
All right.
I wanted to zoom in on that photograph to look at the slope of the existing roof.
All right.
Just use your hand to move
You can
over.
use the hand and move over.
There
You
you
don't
go.
need
There you
to
go.
scroll with the bars.
Oh, we can just highlight on that hand there. Okay. Yep.
I think that's close enough. I think that's great.
Okay. That looks rather steep. That existing roof doesn't look like a flat roof. Am I mistaken?
It has a little bit slope, of probably between 1 and 2%.
No, I'm not looking at that patio. I'm looking at the roof of this, on the second floor. Yes, the roof of that. That looks like a considerably slope on that roof. Of, I don't know, 4 or 5 boards over that?
You mean this roof?
No, the one that's recessed, is that not what the existing master bedroom condition was? The one in the back?
Yeah, this one over here?
Yes,
Yes.
that roof. That's not a flat roof.
Oh, that roof is stayed. No, that was.
Well, they're both sloped, so we're not, the new roof is not flat either.
So it's the picture that's below this, the picture that's below this is the next phase of the project, is that correct?
Yes.
So if you scroll down. So you decided when you needed to re-roof your bedroom because the rain was coming in, that you were going to actually extend it. And then instead of repairing the roof, you put a new roof on.
Correct.
And when you put that new roof on, what happened to the slope of the roof?
I believe it stayed the same.
It didn't.
Um,
Visually, it doesn't, it's not the same.
Mr. Rolando, are you the gentleman that was part of the construction team?
Yes.
Do you remember the slope of this roof when you put the new roof on?
You mean the?
The one that's right there where your hand is right now?
Yeah. Well, this is the existing flat roof that it is a 1 to 2%. As you could see on the left side, over here, the roof was up to here, and then we was extended, maintaining the same slope all the way out. The roof behind it, that is an existing roof of the house.
Yeah, we're not asking about
Yeah.
that. We're asking about the extended bedroom.
Yeah, this is the bedroom. The existing bedroom roof was around here, and it was extended out to enlarge the size of the bedroom. But we kept the same slope of the roof.
Did you keep the existing structure at the original master bedroom and extend that structure?
Yeah, extended. We
Did not
reframed.
replace it?
No, we extended only. We had to reframe some of the roof members and the floor joists, but basically the slope of the roof and the dimension were basically out to the edge of the existing slab porch that was outside.
Are those 2 new windows, are they placed higher, the headers at a higher location than the originals?
Basically the window were just pretty much to match you see this portion of the house over here is existing.
Right?
So we try to maintain the same profile of the windows and mounting right to the underside of the roof.
Okay. One of the things that we have a particular issue in is do you have any side-by-side existing elevation and how it's built now of this rear elevation?
Side by,
Not elevations, not the three-dimensional axons, just a drawn elevation of the existing and the new next to each other.
yeah. Well, here is the existing, the way it is, existing, and in the bottom over here, this is the new. For phase one, we call it the extension of the master bedroom. And these are the side elevation in the same process. You could see that the window were removed and the roof was basically removed at that portion and then extend out.
Okay. I think we beat that horse to death. One of the things I do want to point out is that you've said numerous times that you're repeating and copying all of the existing details on this new multi-phase addition. How do we know, when this is done, how would we know what was original historic building and what was new addition? How would we be able to tell, how would a layperson walking by be able to tell the difference between where the existing house ended and all this new construction begins?
Well, we're trying to match the existing finish of the house.
So I'm asking, how would we know what was new and what was existing?
There's one trim piece that's right directly in the middle of old and new that we kept in place, which we could see on the side elevation.
Over here, this is the trim, no? Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You can see this is the trim, the existing trim that basically separates some of the finish that they were adding between existing and new.
Or it might be that one right there. I'm not, I think
Yeah.
it's this one.
Which
It's this
one?
It's this one right there.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the trim, yeah. So
Okay,
this
I
portion of the bottom of the house is existing, and this portion over here in the top, that's new.
Okay, how about to the left, right to the left of that elevation to the left? Where does the existing house end and the new construction begin?
Well, this is the new addition over here. This is on the column, and this is the existing house. This is the line of the existing house, and this is the portion of the house that was extended, the master bedroom.
Okay.
And this is in the other direction.
All right, let's just go one more step, and that's to the proposed future phase 2 or phase 3, whichever phase that is, the 3-story addition. Can we discuss that?
Yeah. This is the proposed, let me show you this.
No, you were on the right page.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is the extension of the master bedroom, and this piece over here is the phase 2, which is the bottom enclosed porch. This is an enclosed porch, and this is sort of a livable attic space around it.
Okay, and the elevation of the top of that?
This one?
Yes, the top of that. I can't read the numbers. Where you?
It's on your drawing. It's on the sheet you're on. We just can't read it.
The top of the
Yeah.
roof
Oh, you have to measure.
elevation.
Yeah, that elevation over there, yeah, that elevation over there is within the limited by the zoning, we are just a little bit below the maximum height allowed.
What is it? I'm asking what it is.
Oh, 2910?
29 foot 10.
29, 9.5. Yeah.
And what's the height of the existing building?
29, 9.5.
So it's exactly the same height?
Same height, yeah.
It's not below?
No.
Is there any way to make it below?
We would have had to redesign the whole roof again to lower it.
I understand you'd have to redesign things. Is there a reason that it cannot be lower?
No, it's not a specific reason. If we make it lower, we are definitely changing the overhead conditions in the interior space, what is not allowed. So in other words, if we change the shape of the roof and lower, then there will not be enough clearance inside the room of this space, you know. It will be less than 7 feet if we change the roof configuration.
Okay.
So that's a habitable space.
Hmm?
It's gonna be a habitable space.
That's what they're saying, yes. Yeah, it's a habitable space up in the attic.
Yeah.
So we designed it to match the existing height.
Right, but that's not in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior Standards or the Hyde Park Design Guidelines. All the Hyde Park Design Guidelines state that any additions should be subservient to and well, basically subservient to the original historic house. Because if you create a design that's greater than and bigger than the original historic house, the history of the building is diminished. It gets reduced, it gets put, it like becomes the secondary thing and the addition becomes the primary thing. And that's not what any historic guidelines state. I'll allow other commissioners to ask questions.
If you have other questions, please ask them.
Exact
It's just that
or-
we need to just ask the questions and let them
It is
answer.
pretty much
I'm good.
exactly the same height. We discussed that with
Mr.
them.
Kempton, if you have any questions for the applicant at this time?
I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Okay, me too. Mr. Myers?
Is the new ridge in place already? Is it in the photographs that we saw or
Yeah,
not?
the roof, the ridge is in place now.
Okay, so the ridge has been constructed.
Yeah.
So if we look at those photographs, we can see sort of the effect of the new construction on the visuals of the front of the house. So maybe it would be good to reference those, if you could show us those photographs. I don't know who had
Do
them.
we have the photograph?
Visually, when you're in the front of the house, you cannot see the back. You can't see the ridge at all.
But when you're at the side, you can,
On-
right? I mean,
Yeah, in the corner, yeah.
yeah.
So let's, we can pull up that photo. Actually, it's a photo I think was on your presentation. There was a corner photo.
Tom, give me a minute. Is it up there? Tom, let me drive it for a minute.
You just let it go.
So look in here, is a photo up there
Just
now?
one sec, we're waiting. There it is.
Thank
There
you.
it is.
Okay, let's just keep this here for just a moment, because I would like to also ask a question about the windows on that, what was at one point a balcony, it seems, and now where did those,
Those were on the house when I bought it.
It was probably a sleeping porch,
okay,
more than likely.
Now they're, I think, PVC or vinyl or something, I don't know.
okay, all right, just,
There's mixed match windows all in the house, aluminum and.
okay, and then, okay, so now let's go and take a look at I think it's the north side, right?
So this is the front elevation from Oregon. So looking down the side here, you can see how the volume starts speaking up over here. Side, as I stated, it was pretty hard to get some shots in there.
Mm-hmm.
But these are definitely the final phase forms that we're seeing, right? in
This
those?
was, within a month.
Right,
These
but in
pictures.
terms of their documents that they're showing us today, this is like that final phase form. Phase 2?
This is the scale and massing that's in place, that's replicated with the progression of their drawings. Their drawings show the windows and everything else cut into it. But this is all the overall scale and massing. As you come from the historic home, and then you see, that was what I was trying to illustrate, how this gable dies into this cross gable, and this is the new massing, obviously, in the back.
Right.
And can you show us the front of the house again, which all these were taken at the same time, right?
Yes. This is from the front, looking down that north elevation from front to back,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just from the front. But, the perspective is at the sidewalk on that side of the street. We're not across the street or anything. But he is correct. There's a datum line from this ridge, from this cross ridge to the new ridge that's at that 29.5. But there is a portion of the historic home that comes down that new volume receives in the back, as indicated on his drawings. I'm gonna continue on. If you want me to stop somewhere through the photos, let me know. This is from the back.
This is all brand new, right,
This
that we're
back here is all
seeing?
new.
Well, quick question for Mr. Jennings. Structurally, this was built without being completely permitted. Is there anything that the building department is going to require to be changed? Or are what we're looking at acceptable from a construction standpoint?
Dave Jennings, Construction Services Operations Manager, City of Tampa. Since the structure was built without permits, they were cited by our construction compliance team. The structure has not been inspected by the City of Tampa at any point. So all this work would then have to be provided with engineer's letter, architect letters on how it was constructed, documenting what was there and how it was done. Our inspectors would not do that inspection. It'd have to be an after-the-fact inspection with a letter for covered work.
Thank you, Dave.
May I speak now or no?
Well, we're in the process of
Oh.
questions, so, Mr. Myers, any further questions for the applicant?
Okay. And it's not your intention at this time to change the screens on the north screen porch?
That's not what we're looking at today.
Okay, yeah, you're right, okay. All right, thank you. No further questions.
Mr. Sutton?
I'm going to reserve some comment for our comment period amongst ourselves about some of the architectural forms that are here, but I want to talk about some materiality.
Actually ask a question.
Yes.
Okay.
I want to ask some questions about that. Windows. You have new windows, correct?
Yeah.
Doors. You have new doors, correct? Are those going to be wood
Wood, yes. With the wood frame doors with the screen window, yeah.
with a screen? What about the windows? Are those also going to be wood windows?
Those gonna be metal clad windows, but, impact resistant windows.
Impact resistant is one thing. Metal cladding is another issue because you are dealing with wood windows on your existing structure. And when you're dealing with materiality for additions onto a contributing structure, those materials that you integrate into that need to have some formal and very real relationship to those existing materials in place. Okay? We know that the existing historic building has wood windows.
There's about 4 wood windows out of every window there. Everything else is aluminum, vinyl, mixed match. Of the
That
whole
was
building.
not brought to our attention, because that has some certain mitigating factors on that. Because when we're looking at this and you're saying we're going to match existing, what exactly are you going to match? Are we talking height, width?
We want to match the dimensions of the window, the profile, the wood trim, but the actual frame of the window will be aluminum clad window.
You mentioned the wood trim, as well as siding on this project.
Yeah.
Is all of your final finishes, they're going to be wood?
Yeah, with the wood siding to match the existing dimensions of the siding.
And if I recall correctly from your presentation, you have the nature of your roofing to substantially match your existing. Do you have an exact match on that, or is this a close sort of a thing?
It appears it's exact. I don't have the brand of the exact, because the roof that was, it was present when I bought it 10 years ago.
Okay, because I was wondering how that may, this
it
is
looks
not a
identical.
small addition you're planning, so I'm wondering how that may have an impact on your existing roof and whether or not that was going to be replaced in the long or the short term as well. Last item. This is a perfect picture of it right here, right now, because we see that your addition is basically in a second story plus addition over an open area, basically a very large open porch. So it's basically a building on stilts. How are you planning on dealing with the architectural fit, finish, and trim of the architectural elements, the posts and the beams, your columns, with respect to how it integrates into the building? We've not seen details with that. And how it may or may not reflect what's happening on the front and side of the existing structure. Do you have any indication as to what we're going to be dealing with that there?
So the front facade picture that you see from the street, we're going to match the columns nearly identically with the tapered columns, the same brick.
You can see over here, these are the columns that were added, and these columns are tapered with the brick base to match the front of the house roughly, except the front is painted, and this brick is not painted in the back. And the porch will be a wood frame porch, and the door the same, you know, will be a wood door with the screen.
Thank you very much.
Could I interject something right there where you said you were going to match the front porch column surrounds, these tapered column
Yeah,
surrounds?
you could see in the right, you could see in the right.
I can see it. Let me ask my question, please.
Yeah.
The front porch column wraps were built in 2018 by the applicant out of Hardy Board. So they're not historic. There's nothing historic about them. So that you're copying a non-historic detail, you know, again. I just want to clarify that. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay.
So I really need to understand the historic fabric of this house. Ron, can you put back up the Sanborn image and zoom in to the outline, please?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking at it. I do see it, thank you. Yes, sir, it is here. Okay. We do not have a sense of when that protrusion at the front was added, correct? We can only say that the sandboard indicates it may or may not have been there at the time.
Are you looking here?
Yeah, I'm looking at the projection at the front, trying to understand the actual form that was original
You know,
before asking a
This
question.
is Oregon. You come in
Yeah.
here, you have the wraparound porch,
Right,
which illustrates this one, and it's open, so this was an open porch, 1 story.
yep,
Then you have the 2D, 2-story dwelling. This is the footprint of the structure in 1929.
yeah,
You see how it kind of telescopes back. This, correct me, gentlemen, this was not here. This bump was eliminated?
No, the bumpy was not there.
It's not there.
No.
I don't see any indication of that when
Yeah.
I go on site.
yeah,
And then you have the flat back here.
yeah, okay. God, it's so difficult. That was a toughie. Can we go back to the applicant's presentation, please? I do have a couple of questions about the site plan. And I'd like to see the site plan with the final version, not where it's at now, because I think we're talking about certificate of appropriateness for the final version, not where it stands now, not where it was, 6 months ago. So if we could see that site plan, please. And if you could zoom in on that last one to the right, please.
This one?
Yeah. Just use your hand. You're gonna
Okay.
go through the different pages if you do that. Just use your hand. No, on the page. Just go to the left. Take your
Okay.
hand and just touch the page and move it to the left, just like on your phone. You're getting it. Awesome. Can you scooch it down just a little bit? I want to see the front of the house for a minute. So one of the comments in the staff report was about parking cars. So typically in the district, the cars have to be within the limit of the front facade, not the porch. Is there room to do that on site?
Well, there is a second story right about this line. So this is the line of the first floor of the house. The second floor is right over here.
That's not correct based on what I'm seeing. The second floor is in line with the first floor. The first floor is a porch.
Is it?
Then there's that sleeping porch that hangs over. I don't know if you count that as the second floor.
With it,
Is staff, I know that staff has reviewed this, but I don't know if this is the plan that you've seen and if this is one that you were still concerned about.
This is the final plan that staff saw, and we were concerned about it. We had a meeting, telephone meeting on Friday, and we talked about the vehicles being on site, being subordinate to the fabric of the district. Typically, that we see the vehicles push into the property that are behind the first floor facade of the building. So there is a little bit of wiggle room if he could relocate that gate that we spoke about, on that phone call on Friday. That's open for discussion, and the owner is here to discuss that.
Well, we don't typically see the fences go right up to the front porch, the most proud corner of a porch, right? And so this is the question I had, is the second car where we would typically see that in this district? It's my understanding that we usually use the front face of the primary structure, not the porch.
That's a correct statement.
Correct.
Currently, the gate down the vehicular access, it frees up the wraparound porch, which we would want to see. But
Right.
I believe that the vehicles still could come into the site to meet our standards that we consistently approve.
Right.
So.
Okay, so continue that as a comment, all right. Then I know that you got rid of the mini split, but where are the mechanical units situated now? Okay, below that.
Is basically the existing ones are here,
Okay,
right over here, but the new proposed will be right over here.
behind the gate,
Yeah,
okay.
behind the gate.
Are there any new portions of fence or new gates that you are putting on, or are these all existing?
This is all existing, but if we need to move the cars, then we would have to relocate this gate back in order to have the depth required for the 2 cars.
Okay, but that would probably be the existing gate.
Right.
Okay, all right, and the water heater is there. Okay, got rid of that. There was a point on this about the eave-to-eave dimension. Do you have that on the plans from the
It's
existing?
right here. This is the eve-to-eve dimension, which is 3 feet 9.5.
And that's compliant with the current,
No, I think we need 5 feet in there. So I guess the remedy would be is to shorten the overhang of the roof in either side to maintain the 5 feet between eve to eve dimension.
yeah, more than likely you're pushing the building back, right? All right, so this needs to comply. And then we did talk a little bit about pervious versus impervious. Will there be new pavers? Stay on the final plan. Don't.
Oh, okay.
Don't. You're confused me way too much going to these different plans, so let's just stay on this one. Understand that you're gonna take portions of the pavers away, but are there areas where the pavers are to go, and are those new or existing?
These are existing pavers and I think our drawing called for removal all these pavers and replace it with artificial turf.
Artificial turf.
Yeah.
Okay. So this one. You go to your building section, it was the one, you can zoom out to your page again. There was a building section with a lot of keynotes that were stacked. Can we look at that wall section with you, please? Yep.
Right there.
And if we could start at the top, zoom in and start at the top and indicate everything. We're not gonna read the keynote, so you're just gonna need to describe to us what we're looking at and what the intention is. And I'll help walk you through that.
All right. As you can see, this is a section through
Can we zoom in just a little bit more?
Okay.
One more. That's good. Okay, and we're looking at the building section where?
Section 2, basically right here within from the new construction.
Where the
right?
3-story addition
Right,
would
where the
be.
3-story addition go, right.
Okay, all right, so we're at
Okay.
the top.
The top shows, the new roof rafter with the spray insulation. And they're using 2x6s, wall framing with the header, 3 2x12 headers over here, showing the wood trim, the overhang, the underside enclosure, the head trim, and the wood siding, along with the detail of the window header and the window frame.
Okay, and you did indicate earlier that all trim would be wood?
All
not
trim
hardened?
exterior wood will be solid wood frame, yeah.
Okay. You can move down the section then.
Okay. Over here again, this is a section of the window. You can see the window over here. And then the bottom seal of the window with the trim and the siding, extending the wall all the way down to the top of the new floor joist
Okay.
with the metal straps and the header. Again, showing, detail of the siding and again, the detail of the window trim above and the framing of the window. And this is, again, the second part of the wall, resting over the floor assembly with insulation. And this will be the bottom of the enclosed porch, which has some sort of a wood planking attached to the underside of the floor joist.
Is that tongue and groove, or
Yeah,
is
tongue
that?
and, yeah, it's a tongue and groove siding, big groove. The wood beam and we project out in front of that piece, sort of a created transition between the top and the bottom of the column. And the section through the screen and the tapered column behind it,
Okay.
showing the middle and the bottom portion of the screen sitting over the new concrete footings.
So do you have any other wall sections in this set that?
No, this is the only window section that we.
So one of the questions, and it's a fair question, where it's not a porch condition, what is the foundation intent for the new areas?
We have a new spread footings.
It's all spread footing?
Yeah, the new spread footing in each of the new columns, yeah.
No, but I mean, so in the areas where it's not porch,
Yes.
okay, so going inside the building, is that a slab on grade, or is it a raised condition?
That is a slab on grade.
It is a slab on grade?
And the new addition is a slab on
The
grade.
new addition.
Yeah.
What's the elevation of your existing home? The floor? Isn't that elevated?
It's on pier, yeah.
So how are you making the transition from the back to the existing home? From the addition spaces to the existing home?
The first floor is flush with the exterior, so you could walk out of it.
Yeah, the concrete comes up in the back. You can, you probably, it's pretty much flush with the floor is flush. It's a little below, but I'm not sure which part you're asking.
No, what she's asking is the relationship between the interior slab and the exterior, the new addition.
Oh, so the original's raised on pier, and then, it's, the whole property sort of on a hill almost, so as it goes towards the back, it gets more and more shallow. And then the concrete matches kind of perfectly with the old. And then there's probably maybe that height of the concrete.
Do you have a building section?
No, that portion of the building, no. The only one we brought it was to show the detail showing all the components at this point with this section. But we don't have it, we only have footings out of to this point.
The side elevation seems to show just siding going to the ground. I mean, so there are some concerns, and we can go through that when we're discussing the case, but not understanding how you're meeting the ground and how you're actually transitioning between the interiors is difficult for us. And certainly we don't get into your interiors, but understanding how the building is meeting the ground and how they're merging is important. And especially how you're finishing your materials as they go to ground, right?
The only thing I know is when I walked through this thing, I saw that the interior slab below that second floor bedroom that I was standing is pretty much flush with the concrete slab of the proposed enclosed porch. Now, how that thing was developed, we have to investigate how the existing house was.
So in this area that you have the hand on right now,
Yeah.
that's existing.
Yes.
You're just building over it.
Yeah,
So you're gonna build on top of the existing slab that's there now for the outdoor porch.
right.
Did we have images of that? Do you have images of that in your presentation? Can you
No, I
show
don't
us
have
that?
photos of that.
The back was pictured.
Was that one of staff's pictures? Sorry, Ron, can we look at that again?
I don't know if it shows the floor, but it should. Right, there it
Right
is.
there, right there?
Yeah. Those two sections, the concrete slab is the new concrete slab, right?
They're both new concrete slabs?
Yes,
And they're level with the interior elevation?
Yes.
You do not use steps to go from there anywhere else in your house on
No.
the first floor?
that's pretty much same level, the interior slab.
The front of the property has steps. It's like I said.
Right, I understood. That's why I'm a
That's
little
it.
confused here.
Because the whole slope of the property, there's actually a grade on the whole property
Okay.
that kind of goes down.
All right, I think I've asked all the questions I needed to ask. Any other commissioners have questions that they'd like to ask the applicant at this time? Or staff?
Quick question, the pavers in the back are on concrete?
The pavers in the back, they are sitting on top, in some sort
Sand,
of
it's
a
like the sand concrete, you know, the paver base.
Oh, okay.
Holloway put it all down with the,
Yeah, they are pavers
Two by
on
two
some
pavers.
sub-base over compacted field, yeah.
Okay, so you're just gonna change, it would seem like there would be enough permeability there, but that's not acceptable to the city or whatever. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, we want to propose that, but, you know,
So you're gonna change it out?
we are going to change that, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No further questions.
None? All right, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal, so it's your opportunity to add anything, to anything that might have been discussed already. Wait, you have another one?
Yes, I apologize.
Sorry, take that back.
Clarify a little bit about the condition of the windows, because we normally say that you have to go, but that you would have to put in wood windows. But you have a variety of different windows. You said you have maybe 4 windows that are wood in the existing structure?
Yeah, exactly. Throughout the years, they must have just continued to replace with all different types. So there's vinyl, like single pane, aluminum on most, actually a lot of them, which eventually I'd like to replace.
Mhm.
But there's some other random, I guess PVC, vinyl, I don't even know what the material is, but just different types of, even different sashes, must have been done in the 70s or something, or,
Okay, thank you.
so very much, but, okay, I'll leave my comments for my 5 minutes.
Okay. Any other questions then? All right. You have 5 minutes now to,
So, when I bought the home, I appreciated its historical significance, and my goal was always to kind of really preserve the Craftsman era, preserve the original architectural elements, and everything I've tried to do was with that in mind. I know the error in my ways completely, and I didn't get permission. However, I just want you to know that number one priority for me was to preserve this home and bring it back to original. I did use hardy board on the front columns, and I got eventually permission to use that hardy board. The reason why I used it, and I tried to match the an original Craftsman tapered column, I used hardy because the wood that was there was completely rotten, and I wanted to use something that would actually last for a long time that I didn't think I'd have to replace. So I eventually did get permission from staff to use that hardy board, and that's in the files as well. And so the reason why I wanted to recreate that in the back is because I've already gotten permission for it, and I thought that it would be the longest lasting product. Same with the brick. I wanted to match the brick. I wanted to match the gables, the gingerbread look. I wanted to match everything. I even, when I constructed the new gables, I tried to match the pitch, and so it looked like all the gables were, of the same period. Just every single detail I'm trying to think about, and my goal is to bring it to your standard. So I'm glad we're here and discussing it all. And then the other comment I wanted to make was with construction. I'm not sure if you're aware, but we did have all of the engineering conditionally approved by the city of Tampa. So all of the modifications that we need to do to bring it to code are all conditionally approved based off of ARC. So we did go over, it took, maybe close to a year of getting that approval. I know this, I'm probably in reverse order. Usually you get ARC approval, then City of Tampa approves, but we kind of did it the opposite way. And so this is the last step.
all right, thank you, sir. We're going to go ahead and close the public portion of it and discuss the case. Mr. Sutton, you had some comments you said that you wanted to bring forward.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. This is a confusing project to take a very close look at. There's a lot of things going on here. And I want to start first with the original fabric of the building. It seems quite apparent that there has been a history on this site with that original building. And, we could see it in the original sleeping porches and how they have changed and have been enclosed over the years, probably on 2 different occasions for that matter. That when we move to the rear of the structure, I'm struck by really 2 oddities. It seems that there are some elements that we see more plainly at the rear of the building that don't seem to fit with the original building fabric. And I'm wondering if they've either been additions in the far past or if they are highly modified original pieces of the original fabric. And that's kind of coloring our difficulty in interpreting what's happening here. First, there's of course the that odd block on the back that has that strange 3-plane roof over it. It's almost like a bay in its respect. And I suspect also that entire block where the existing master bedroom on the 2nd floor level in itself might have been an addition in its own self at some point in time. So what we're looking at now is the gentleman coming forward, and they've got this grand plan on some additions to an existing fabric that we don't have a real good connection to that fabric, and it's hard to read, and it's hard to understand what they're trying to accomplish. To make matters worse, the documentation that we see here, if this were a restoration or a full-blown renovation of an existing structure, it's probably not really up to prime time, because they're talking about elements that we're not seeing in the documents themselves. We're not seeing it in the photo record, we're not seeing it in the historical record from the neighborhood being brought forward here, such as that occupied third-story attic, if you will. That seems to be a very jarring factor to me in terms of the entire geometry of what's happening in the back. Never mind the fact that the entire second floor and everything happening for that livable space is over an open area. There's some odd juxtapositions presented here tonight that we really don't see elsewhere, or at least to this scale.
This is like the most monstrous example of addition after addition in Hyde Park that I've seen. And I've seen some. Mr. Myers?
Well, this house is indeed kind of a Frankenstein. You know, there's like some stuff, the whole back, we can just say is probably not original, because because they lived in the house very, very differently. And so I feel as though the first floor is, where it goes out onto the porch, is there, and it's been there for a long time. So it's kind of like, it's sort of a given. We have to kind of.
It's a given fabric.
Yeah, it's given fabric. It is not historic fabric. Okay. And then I think that we can discuss, we can discuss things about the windows and what we want to, permit and not permit. It's a 3,500 square foot house, it seems. And that is not so unusual in Hyde Park.
No, it's not.
And so we look at it and we go, it's a big addition, but it is not making it bigger than some of its neighbors in the district. And it does, the fact that we have two cross gables and then a connecting element is also not unusual. I mean, taking a look from pretty high up above. And so there are some things that I think that staff needs to be coordinated with staff, certainly. And it may be that there's so much that we have to ask to come and see it again. But I think it's, and I think it's kind of there. And I think it's as there as we can expect it to get. Now, there may be more polished additions in Hyde Park, but basically it is not far off from its neighbors in most respects. That's the way I see it.
Well, I think there are some fundamental issues with it. One is the massing, the size, the height. The third story to me just doesn't make any sense. And typically we have additions step down as well as move back. And I understand that it aligns with the existing ridge, but it's also undermining an original form of the building, which is that cross gable that moves to the back. I do think that when it comes to materials, the choices are fine from materiality. One of the things that the Secretary of the Interior Standards and the Hyde Park Guidelines speak to is the differentiation of historic components and then anything that might be added in its lifetime, right? And so I do know there's the one board, the one vertical trim piece that exists, and another one that you're gonna add on. But I think in the areas where planes come and they align, there are other ways to do that are more discernible, that help us start to understand what's newer than the historic components. And so looking at different sizes of trim, looking at different sizes of siding when you actually transition and have that vertical board, The windows are another way to do that, differentiating the materiality. And I know we've talked a little bit about the aluminum clad wood. We certainly don't want to see vinyl. And then we don't typically want to see the slope of the roofs change. I mean, that's just too hard to mesh building forms. But stepping them down and allowing the historic components to breathe a little bit more. I feel like so much has been done to the back of this house that the original form, and especially now with that 3-story piece in the back, a lot of that is just getting squeezed out and lost in the form of the building. The other thing is, as you turn to the back, typically as a house moves back, as you move from the more public front street portion of a home and back into the support functions and move to what typically would be the service alley when we have those, the detailing goes down. So as much as you love the gingerbread, we would see less of that, and we would see less of the adornment and detailing of columns and brick wraps and things like that. So I think Commissioner Sutton had a very valid point that you probably need to do a little bit more homework about historic precedents in the neighborhood. And I know it's difficult to get into people's backyards unless you're like having porch parties or something and bringing a bottle of rum or something. But if you have neighbors and can go and look and see how it transitions, the more historic properties, the ones that have more of the historic components left intact, you'll see that transition. And I think that's what's missing here, is that I applaud you wanting to replicate all of that, but that belongs on the front, and on the sides that are the historic components. As you move backwards and you're putting all this money in, you can reconsider that, because that's really more in support of what historic districts like to see and the Secretary of the Interior standards speak to. So as the additions come, they are more diminutive, and they help sell the idea that the historic property is valued.
I may think to add to that, it's always laudable that you say, yeah, I want to maintain the historic fabric of the house and all that kind of stuff. The Hyde Park guidelines are written, and the Secretary of the Interior standards are written documents explaining how to go about that. And very little of what's going on in this house with the additions and whatnot follow those guidelines or respect those guidelines. As you're saying, maybe looking at other historic houses and how things get subservient and materials change. For the addition, it's a different material. It's compatible, but it's different than the original historic fabric. I think these guidelines are all there to be written and to be read and to be followed. And it's not enough to say that I want to do this without following what's written and what's already been put in place for, I don't know, how long has the Hyde Park Design Guidelines been in place?
Oh, gosh.
50, 60 years?
No, not quite.
Not that long?
No, about 25.
All right.
40? Did you say 40? Has it been 40?
Yeah.
Really? Gosh.
They've been around a long time. And the Department of the Interior standards have been around for a lot longer than that. And frankly, I think they need to be read, and I think this needs to be represented to us with a different set of drawings.
I want to say that's not a complete start over, do over. I think you have components here that are manageable. I just think there's too much, and some editing needs to happen. That's my personal and professional opinion. And Mr. Kempton.
I guess what I would say is that third story addition is what is shocking, and the petitioner had mentioned that he went the process backwards, and if you had done it in the correct format, that third story addition, I dare say, would not look like what it looks like today, because that is the most jarring part of it. So my question for the other commissioners, and you guys have really done a nice job laying this out, is what do you do now that it's there? Besides some of the, and you really laid it out well, but is there anything that can be done short of a massive overhaul, which no one, I think, wants you to go through that, but what can you do to kind of mitigate that?
It's a good question. I mean, it does come to a matter of, cost that the applicant has to take on, knowing full well that he's already paying significant fines. But at the end of the day, we also have to be careful.
Part of the situation that we have here is that rear elevation in hand, we're looking at something that is now done. And you are correct, it's short of removing it all and starting all over again. The question begs, what do we do now that we have the done? Now, we do have an example here of, unfortunately, a construction project that's gone awry, but there's at least a working understanding by the applicant to do something that is livable, at least, to how he plans on using the building, as well as something that's compatible with his existing fabric. He's not a restoration architect, he's not being slavish about it, but I think you are correct that there is a certain degree of simplicity that should be brought further and further and further back. And I think he needs to, perhaps, you are correct in a certain way, that he needs to come back with a different detail package, something that reflects what is the separation between the old, what is the new, how does the detailing reflect that? The open ground floor, which bothers me, I mean, that's a given, but how do you detail that so it functions more as an outdoor room as opposed to a screened-in porch? Same thing with the addition of the attic, the habitable attic. It's there, short of taking it off and starting over again. How do you make this a more diminutive, if you will, volume or expression of that volume, so that yes, you can still use it, but it doesn't make that big third-story impact, which is so different from everything else that's happening on this site. If this were coming to us from the very beginning, we would be talking along the terms of, nice idea, but you're not ready for prime time. You need to go back and do some significant massaging. And unfortunately, I think that's something that they should very seriously consider, that they need to take that next step to do the massaging to get this right, so it not only fits for themselves in this building, but also for their immediate neighborhood and the guidelines that govern historic Hyde Park.
Well, I think what's helpful is that this was stopped at a particular stage where they still had an opportunity to change some things. I know you probably have bought materials, but hopefully some of that can be reused and reconsidered. I do think we have to consider how much we can and should request of the applicant to alter what's existing on site, knowing that the building department may or may not have completely reviewed and approved what is existing on site.
One of the other things that always comes up in almost every addition that we see is that the new windows are hurricane or are impact resistant hurricane. But The rest of the house isn't. The rest of the house isn't hurricane resistant. The structure isn't hurricane resistant. The roof joists aren't tied down to the existing structure, more than likely. So it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on the back of something, but the front of something is still subjected to
Well,
be.
in the case of this particular project though, it's an addition, so the addition's gonna meet all the building codes, and so the windows will be properly tied in.
No, I understand, yes, the framing of the windows and the
Right.
framing of the addition were all correct, but it's connected to the rest of the house. It's not necessarily sealed off from the rest of the house.
Right.
The master bedroom was extended, other ports, we don't know what the interior floor plan is. But, I'm just saying, it's just kind of, we've dealt with it in the past where somebody, yeah, sure, your windows are hurricane resistant, but the wall right next to them is not.
Right, right.
So it's a little, something I was pointing out, that's all.
So I think we need to consider, a motion and the extent of that motion.
Did I see something?
Well, I know what Dennis is doing. He's explaining the schedule, the upcoming schedule, depending on what we act on. So is there a consideration for a motion, or do we need to speak to any points before making a motion?
May I say something?
We generally can't
Oh,
take
okay.
any comments during discussion. Did you want to say something, Dennis?
I think what the owner was gonna interject is that he is willing to continue to further refine and bring you back additional information if that's the desire of the board. He's open to trying to come up with sort of a collaborative solution to this.
Okay,
So we could stop now.
well,
I mean,
the only concern I have for that is that the applicant understands enough about where we're heading in our direction. Okay.
Because I'm disinclined to create a laundry list for this project.
I don't want to create a laundry list either. I thought it was much more simple than that, but I can't make the motion. Do we have a consideration for a motion? Does anyone want to entertain a motion at this time? I have to open up questions if you want to ask questions.
Well, I mean, if we move to continue, we need to know a date and a meeting.
We'll get that.
To
Staff
continue.
will give us that.
Well, that's what I was just gonna ask.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead. Dennis, do we have a date?
Yeah.
So the first available hearing would be January the 8th, 2024. We may have to adjust that slightly depending on our other cases. It would be in January, but I would continue to the 8th, and then if we need to adjust, we'll discuss that with the owner.
All right, thank you. Have a motion?
I move the grant continuance in the case of ARC 2307 for the property located at 911 South Oregon Avenue in the Hyde Park Historic District to the January 8th, 2024 public hearing at 5:30 in the afternoon here, tentatively scheduled in this room. And we recognize that this schedule may be subject to change.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion granted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we have a few things on the agenda before we close out tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
So Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. One document that's under item number 10 is a draft rules of procedure document that was included in your packets and then also emailed to you. The current rules of procedure were adopted in February of 2016. So the staff and other departmental staff, in accordance with the with sort of the need to update these periodically, has provided this draft to you for you to review in the upcoming weeks. And it'll be an item that'll be scheduled on the December agenda on the 4th for discussion and for any changes that you wish to make to those. So I would recommend maybe reviewing those. You can call me if you'd like to discuss changes in advance of the public hearing, or send me your suggestions in email. We'll be happy to consider those and compile them and then work towards a final draft on these. So some of these changes that you're going to see deal with sort of trying to align the various public boards into certain practices, and then others are specific to this particular board, such as when we get into the sequence of a hearing and the timeframes are allowed. So you certainly have input in those areas and have, I'm sure, an opinion of what the rule should encompass.
Okay.
Did you wish to add anything, Dina, to that?
Any really big changes that should be in red?
Dana Crosby Collier from the City Attorney's Office. Changes of note that I'll point out to you, under this new revision, 5.2, a tie vote would mean the matter would fail instead of come back at a subsequent meeting. We added language. A lot of it was streamlining it and just bringing a lot of it up to date, as Dennis said. 4.10, continuance for 60 days with a no-show. That's new language. 4.4, public hearing postponed due to a local state of emergency. That's consistent with a recent code change we made to allow things to just roll over to the next meeting rather than try to rush a quorum in with a hurricane coming to
Right.
continue items. So another thing we have revised is 6.0, additional information to be included with an application, including a site plan and other more information. We've just added that to the rules.
Excuse me, ma'am, does that include additional exhibits and such things of that nature?
So exhibits are actually part of the submission requirements.
Yeah.
Not in your actual meeting rules. I mean, if there are suggestions to, expand the submission requirements, we can certainly receive those as well, but they're not just appropriately housed in the rules of procedure.
So we're adding them to 6.0, the things that staff already requires when they take in an application.
Okay.
Was there consideration, I think it was discussed in the past, for limiting the number of continuances allowed before the application is denied and they have to go back wait a year? Is that in here?
We talked about that and actually felt that would be more of a programmatic requirement that would go into our program documents and not necessarily in the rules. We did require renoticing within the rules after 3, which is in accordance with how City Council manages their affairs.
That's if they fail to appear, they have to renotice?
If they fail to appear, they can't return for 2 months. If they've noticed
Okay.
and failed to appear, they
Okay.
can't return for 2 months.
Can we get a quorum to be either 3 or 5 so that we can't have a tie vote?
No, a quorum is a majority of the members, so it's 4. That is your quorum. That's the minimum
Okay,
number you have to
because
have
there are
to
su-
meet.
Because there are supposedly 7 of us.
Right.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah, you are. You have a new member now.
Okay, I guess that there's no getting around that then.
No, that's your quorum under Robert's rules and other sources,
Okay.
the majority.
So we'll look through this and we'll let you know if we have comments.
Yeah, and I'll send you a red line version. I know that there was a red line version that may have not made into your packets, but
We got a PDF?
The PDF does have comments. If you hit the little
Yeah.
comments,
Yeah.
you'll see the comments.
okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and then
looked
that
at
way
that a
you
little
can
bit.
see what the changes are and then form your response to those.
Okay. And then the other thing we have is just to enter in the staff approvals, right? So a motion to receive.
I move that all additional documentation that was received both prior and at this hearing be added to the record.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. See you Wednesday.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
We can just jump right into this.